doesn't always hold. Ice cream has bones. The purple penguin says much. Therefore, God exists. That's my answer.
How does the atheist account for or explain love? How does the atheist account for or explain love?
We're a species that evolved with important social interdependencies. We love people because they add value to our lives. And I think that's as simple as that.
I would ask how you define love as well, because do emperor penguins love each other even though they stay together for their entire lives? Do other species of animals love each other? How do you define love as according to species?
You stated the Bible contains poetic language. That suggests that it's open to multiple interpretations. So why should anyone value your interpretations and no one else's?
Well, since this answer doesn't have to be logical, my answer, no, I'm not. But you understand what it's like if you deny logic. See, the thing is, I'm not going to live up to their worldview and deny logic. I'm going to assume that our world is true and give a logical answer. But if I were to be consistent with their worldview, I wouldn't have to. I want people to keep in mind when they give an answer like that. Another thing is, because there are because people have varied interpretations, doesn't mean that there isn't one right interpretation. That's a hasty generalization. To say that there are many interpretations, so there can't be a right one, is incorrect. If people want to know how to properly interpret the Bible, then you come to our Bible study and we go through it. And logically discuss it. That's how we interpret the Bible with the Bible to find out the right answer. Just like if you're in a car and you don't hear your radio station properly, you don't say, well, I guess there's something wrong with the station. No, there's something wrong with our transmission, with our receiving of that signal. And that's when we get together and we discuss what was said. Sure, there are different interpretations, but that does not mean that there's not a right.
What do you hope for in life? Do you strive to be good in the same way and to help others? And if you do, why? So, what do you hope for in life? Do you strive to be good in some way and to help others? And if you do, why?
I think that my idea of what I want to be in life is to become a medical doctor. So I'm pursuing that in the degree to get biochemistry. I think that this will help humans out more than anything else that I can do in my life. To heal the sick, to help people in any kind of specific way is better than to just ignore the problems or to be something like another specific major that would not help humanity.
I find value and meaning in life by finding things that are personally fulfilling to me, which I think is what everyone does, no matter what they label it. I like to help people and work towards mitigating suffering in the world because I know that in my own personal experiences, I also don't like to suffer. I also don't like it when people don't give reasons for why I should do things. I don't like other people ruling over me. I wouldn't want to live in Tehran. I wouldn't want to live in North Korea. I like to have my own voice and to shape my own life. There's a good question, though. Why do Christians love their neighbor? Do they do it because there is something valuable about their neighbor? Something respectful, something dignified in another human being? Or do they only do it because God commands? And yet when God commands them to kill their son, they have to do that too, because there is no such thing as morality in Christianity. There is only the edict of God. And whatever God says is what is just. And so if God says slavery needs to happen, slavery is justified back then. And when God says that you can rape a woman and then kill her, that's okay for back then. It may not be okay today because there is no such thing as morality with a Christian God. There is only God's law. So when God says kill somebody, it's okay. When God says don't kill anybody, it's not okay. That is the morality of the Taliban, and that is the morality of the Bible, unfortunately. That is not our morality.
But why not?
On the topic of morality, the first couple of 10 Commandments have nothing to do with morality. They have to do with God being jealous. We're the only one. So are the 10 Commandments really moral? Should we base our society off of?
Yes, the Ten Commandments are an exhibition of God's nature and character. We do not determine what is moral just simply because God has commanded it. We determine what's moral because what God commands proceeds from His nature. Therefore, Euthyphro's dilemma doesn't apply to the Christian God. It may apply to a theistic God. When we look at the Ten Commandments, we see that the first four commandments found in the first table of the law are directed insofar as how we are to act toward God. The last half of the Ten Commandments refer to how we are to operate in accordance with our neighbor. If atheism is true and we're all just molecules banging around and everything's a result of time, chance, and natural processes, then why should I care about this particular part of the evolutionary chain? Why should I see an individual that has dignity over and above another individual? Why shouldn't I eat my neighbors instead of love them? That's the question that's at hand, folks.
If logic and reason cease to exist tomorrow, then what will we, and when, I guess this means, hold on.
Next question.
If logic and reason cease to exist tomorrow, then with what will we find new logic and reasoning?
We find new logic and reasoning in what works in society. If something does,
I think you missed it.
Okay.
If logic and reason cease to exist tomorrow. So that presumes that beginning on Sunday, or, let's see, Saturday, if logic and reason cease to exist tomorrow. You can tell I'm working at my capacity. If logic and reason cease to exist tomorrow, that would mean on Saturday. Wait, on Friday, with what will we find new logic and reasoning? With what will we find new logic and reasoning?
What does it mean for reason to stop existing? If you could explain that, you would have to give me reasons to do that. And we base our reasons based on the best evidence that we have in front of us. The reason why I reject Christianity is because I don't find there are good reasons to believe in the Christian God. So if you could give me a picture of a world that doesn't have reason and explain what that would look like, maybe I could answer that question. If they could give me a picture of their God that is based on reason, I might be able to accept their God too. But unfortunately, their God is based on the Christian scripture, which is unreasonable, contradictory, and violates what we believe we know of science based on our best science to date, and so on.
If you say 2 plus 2 equals 4 is an example of the type of science, isn't this type of example of science and mathematics that are based in the Bible? Why does the Bible seem to be so bad at math and science? Example, Leviticus 11:20 to 23, it says insects have 4 legs.
You know, that's one of the things that we've got to get back to. Is that, you know, when Dustin said that this is not an argument about fact, it's about how we interpret the fact based on what we already believe. We start with the position that the Bible is inerrant. So if there's something that seems contradictory, we look at the languages and we try to figure it out. We sit down and we study it. But the question is, which worldview can account for the problem of contradiction? I asked them, why are contradictions not allowed? They can't tell us. And the thing is, they said logic could change. Now, people's perception of logic has changed over time, but if logic can change, why can't there be a 4-legged insect tomorrow? Why couldn't there be a 4-legged insect then? The thing is, we'll study the scriptures and we'll try and find out, we'll try and see how we can reconcile that, but if you don't start with the presupposition that the logic, that the Bible is infallible, you can't have logic. You can have no complaints against the Bible. They're borrowing logic from our worldview to argue against our world. Now the thing is, they say that, you know, logic can change. Well, maybe back then, you know, insects had 4 legs. They can't have a problem with that. They can't say, well, that's illogical. Well, how do you know logic hasn't changed? So you have to keep in mind that when they argue like that, they're borrowing from our world. Sure, there's things that we might never know, or might not find out till, you know, how they're reconciled, but we trust that they can be reconciled, because if you don't, your worldview is reduced to absurdity.
Well, another thing too is the questioner quotes Leviticus 11:22 and 23, but actually they got the question wrong. It says, "These of them you may eat, the locust and its kinds, and the devastating locust and its kinds, and the cricket and its kinds, and the grasshopper and its kinds, but all other winged insects which are 4-footed are detestable to you." It's making a distinction between different types of insects. It's not saying that all insects are 4-footed. So the question's wrong.
Dustin has a book with him. Dustin has a book with him that resolves contradictions that these people bring up. If you look on the internet, you can find them. But that's not the question. The question is not whether they can be resolved. It's what's the problem with contradictions in the atheistic universe. And I'm telling you, if there aren't absolute laws, you can have no problem with contradiction. But they obviously do, because they're depending on absolute laws of logic, which they can't account for. Think about that.